You're listening to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by two first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And today we are going to be talking about the story so far. My son David is 13 months old. Brandon's son Noah is coming up on 9 months. And we are just going to go back over the past several months of fatherhood and talk about, things we've done right, things we've done wrong, lessons we've learned along the way. But before we dig into it, I want to apologize in advance. I'm dealing with some kind of weird sinus infection right now, so my voice might be a little nasally in this episode. We'll be back to normal next week, but just deal with it for now.
This is parenting.
Yeah, exactly. I probably got it from the kid. Thanks, David. So now that that's out of the way, Brandon, if our listeners want to get in touch with us, where can they find us?
Yeah, you can find us on all your major social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can also drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com.
All right, great. So, Brandon, how is Noah doing this week? How are things at home?
So, get ready to sound the alarm. We got some big news over here. We are mobile. We are crawling now.
Yeah, buddy.
We have finally hit the magic moment of both excitement and terror, I would say, because as soon as he started crawling, I was like, holy crap. I was actually using some other choice language that we will not use on this family-friendly podcast, but I was so excited and blown away because you're never expecting them to actually do it.
Right.
Like, I've been crawling around, I'm not kidding, I've been crawling around to show my son what it's like, and it's really funny to see my wife and I just kind of like going in circles, be like, watch this, buddy, watch this. No interest whatsoever. But all of a sudden, a toy was a little bit out of his way, and he just kind of lunges for it like he normally does. He doesn't make it, but then he just kind of kept going.
Awesome.
And I just couldn't believe it. He just started moving. So super excited about him starting to crawl, but at the same time, I'm like, oh man, now I actually have to pay attention to this kid. he can move now. You can't even understand how relaxing it is to know that your kid doesn't move and just think, wow, I'm just going to kick back on the couch here, eat a little something or drink a little something, watch a little TV, and my son's never going to move. He's in that spot, and he just doesn't go anywhere. You had to put up an entire pin around your child to keep him right?
Yeah. He was locked in like the Tyrannosaurus in Jurassic Park. It was and he still is, because he's still crawling like crazy. He's he's not fully walking independently yet, although he's getting there. I've been having training sessions with him every night where I'll grab him by the hands and we'll just take a lap around the house, because he's really excited about it, because he knows how to walk. He just doesn't have the balance to do it without support yet, so I have to kind of hold on to his hands. But other than that, he's moving, baby. He's on his own, going wherever he wants to go, and we're teaching him to kind of crawl up the stairs too, which, as soon as he's got that down, we got to start putting up some baby gates, man, because...
Yeah, I was just saying, you guys are playing with fire on that one, because crawling up the stairs, sure, that sounds fine, but all I'm thinking about is crawling back down the stairs.
Yeah.
Like a tumbling baby situation.
Yeah, he hasn't totally figured that part out yet. He's working on that too, though, which is kind of cool.
Nice. What's interesting about when the kids are starting to walk is obviously then they're going to start running or jogging or whatever you want to call it. But what's been hilarious is I have a cousin who's got a young kid as well, like a year and a half or something like that. We went on a walk one weekend with our kids. So obviously my son's in the stroller. His kid's old enough to kind of walk along with us. And I got to tell you, the funniest thing is watching little kids run. Because they're just pumping their arms and pumping their legs. And after about 5 minutes, they finally caught up with me making 2 strides. It's just so funny to see them work so hard and go almost nowhere because of how small and tiny they are. It takes them so many strides to catch up with us.
Oh, man. No, it's true. And they have... When they first learn how to walk, I've noticed some kids that are slightly a little further ahead than David is. They know how to go. They just don't know how to go like a human.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who's got a kid who's roughly the same age as David, and the kid walks, and he walks really fast and kind of trots, but he's moving around, and it's almost got sort of like a King Kong aspect
like
to it.
Like a gangly arm situation, and like wacky waving inflatable flailing arm man, but like with legs.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're endlessly entertaining until you remember, oh wait, also that's my child, and I have to make sure that they stay alive and that they don't destroy anything.
Of course, but while no one else is around, you can kind of laugh at your own kid. Be like, look at that funny little guy running around. All right, ready to jump into the week's topic?
Yeah, let's do it. So this week we are going to go back over the past 13 months for me, the past 9 months for Brandon, and just look at all of the stuff that really surprised us along the way. It's been a wild ride. There's a lot of things that prior to having a kid were just not really a part of my life, like getting sick. I really did not get sick very much as an adult before I had a kid, and now I'm sick all the time. Surprise, surprise. How about you, Brandon?
It definitely hasn't been maybe as much as you guys. I know we talk all the time about all the sickness, and maybe David's had a little bit more of it than Noah has. So I'm kind of feeling good over here just in comparison. But yeah, certainly the first time I don't think you really are prepared for it. So I've definitely been sick multiple times this year, and maybe I would not have normally been sick, maybe but once this year, like with the weather changing or something. Maybe that's what kicks in a cold, and maybe that's the only time. But I do tend to agree, and I think that no one really prepares you for the first time. Like, it was like the plague swept through.
Oh, yeah.
The first time we got baby sickness among us, and then you can't get away from it.
No.
Is probably the other thing that you don't really think about. Like, one person is sick, then the next person is sick, then the first person is sick again, then the kid is sick again, then the kid's getting you sick again. I mean, it's just, you guys are like stuck together. You can't just like leave and completely separate away.
Right, yeah.
Nor would you want to.
Yeah, that's the hard part is you can't really actually take a sick day when you're sick, especially if your kid is sick and if your spouse is sick. We were in a situation where all three of us were sick, and as sick as we were, and as much as my wife and I just wanted to lie down, eat soda crackers, and like nap until we got better, we had a kid to take care of.
Yep.
And you can't say to the kid, "Look, man, I'm sick. Can we just change you, later?" That doesn't work. You just have to keep on powering through, and that's the hard part, because prior to having a kid, I was used to, I'll get sick, okay, fine, I will just rest it off. I will take off work, take some time just for me, get better, get back to 100%, and then I'm back to it. You don't really have that opportunity as a parent. You have to kind of roll with it.
Absolutely. And it kind of just going off of that, not just with the sickness, but I think your time in general, right? There's just not really time to, quote, unplug.
Sure.
Like you think there would be. I think what has been nice is kind of realizing that once you get to a certain point where your kids are going to sleep around like the 3, 4, 5 month mark at like a reasonable time of like 7 o'clock, there's a couple hours to play with at the end of every night, which is really nice. Like, that's nice. You get a nice, refreshing thing out of that, and maybe those first couple of months you don't think that's ever going to happen, but it does happen, and that's nice. But outside of that, there's really nothing.
Yeah.
And especially on a weekend, like, it never stops. Like, especially if you get to a point where your kids are in daycare during the week, and then you get to a Saturday and you don't have anywhere to take them, you're stuck all day. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's terrible, but like, it's an all-day commitment. It doesn't end. I'm not telling parents anything they don't know, but what's different is what I was kind of surprised at is that let's say my son takes a nap in the middle of the day, like on a Saturday, and both of my wife and I are home. You think you're going to take a nap and kind of relax. I just don't find myself doing that. Very much. I don't know about you, but it's just like that's your only time to kind of actually relax and enjoy. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why wouldn't I take a nap? That's relaxing, right?
Yeah.
But if you really wanted to do something, even as simple as like watching a television program.
Exactly.
Or picking up Netflix or reading a book or doing anything, really, like you kind of take those moments. I think that's what surprised me is that you really steal the moments and actually stay awake and kind of do things because you want to feel like you're kind of having a little bit of fun with yourself.
Exactly.
It's not fun with yourself. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Let's edit that out. You want to...
I'm leaving it in.
You want to feel like you're having a little bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly. And you remind me of something that my buddy Paul told me. He's got 2 kids now, a toddler and a newborn. And he mentioned that even though he's so tired constantly, especially from in the early stages when he was a stay-at-home, when the kid is down for a nap, everyone tells you, sleep when the baby sleeps, right?
Yeah,
if the baby's taking a nap, you take a nap. But he was just so starved for me time that he was like, I know I'm tired, but I want to do something for myself. So he'll play some video games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that was his recreation time because you don't really get a whole lot of that once you're a parent. And you just gotta take it where you can find it, and I find myself doing that, especially because I do freelance work outside of my job.
Sure.
So I find that I'll get up early to do that rather than staying up late. Just because if I'm up before the baby's up, that means I can work uninterrupted.
Yeah, some
you know
free
what I
time
mean?
for you,
Exactly. So it's free time, even though I'm working. It's still time where I can get in my zone. I've got my coffee, I've got my breakfast, and I can just go. And you got to sacrifice a little bit of sleep to get to that, which is probably not the healthiest thing for me in the long run. But in the short term, it kind of works.
But let's talk about sleep. I do want to talk about that as well, because we're just kind of bubbling up to some, complementary themes here. But that's one thing that I've noticed. People talk about how, of course, in the very beginning, you're constantly exhausted, you're never sleeping.
Yeah.
Completely true. I don't know if anybody strings together more than 2 hours of sleep in the first couple months.
Right.
Totally true. We've covered that a lot. Go back and listen to some of our previous episodes. We did some on sleep deprivation. Selfless plug. But I think what I'm thinking about is after you get a couple months in, like I said, you get that foundation, your kids are going to sleep, maybe if they're not even sleeping all the way through the night, but you're just kind of have a schedule basically.
Yeah.
And you still get to sleep at night for a change, and you get a couple hour chunks at a time, but maybe you're not getting that full 8 hours, right? Like I don't think I've gotten to a point yet 9 months in where I've just been getting 8 hours continuously.
I don't think I've gotten that either.
Exactly. I don't know. Maybe it'll never happen again. But
well, he's got to move out sometime,
well,
right?
Hey, maybe. But so there's that kind of constant exhaustion. It's not quite the same as the very beginning, but there's just a regular level of exhaustion that I think all parents face. And I think what's surprising to me is that I'm just used to it now. Like, it doesn't even faze me. I don't think about it. I certainly don't even. I wouldn't even complain about it because it just does. It's just me now.
It becomes the new normal.
Yeah, it's just part of me now. So like people, if I go into work and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got a kid at home. You're probably you're tired, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of tired. I'm not even thinking about my kid being the cause of my tiredness. This is just me now, getting 4-hour chunks." If I can, between when my son wakes up in the middle of the night or something like that. But I mean, it's just like the new norm.
Yeah. Well, it's probably not super healthy, but then again, people have been doing it for thousands of years. I think I heard that Leonardo da Vinci slept in like 2 to 3 hour chunks. Yeah. Thomas Edison, I think Tesla did the same thing. And hey, if these guys can do that and do all these amazing things, certainly we can do that and be mediocre to adequate parents, right?
Or top-notch podcast stars. There you go. That's right. Hey. And then if we're talking about sleep, obviously we've got to talk about the sleep training for our kids. So this is something, again, we've had an episode where we've talked about it, but I think, again, I'm just surprised at how much it changes all the time. And this just kind of goes with an overall theme of your kid is constantly changing, like from month to month. Yeah. It feels like this 9 months has been 9 years or just a very long period of time. But really every single month, maybe 2 months chunks at the most, my son Noah is changing quite dramatically. And you don't really think about literally the evolution of your child, just as a person, and like the brain development, the personality development, all the different things that, in the beginning they're not able to do or to understand or to comprehend, and then they start to learn, and then they start to learn how to, soothe themselves or go to sleep, and then you can start doing the sleep training. So it's been weird, and something that I didn't really think about, and something that constantly kind of surprises me. And I mean, it's one of those things that's a surprise that's a challenge. Yeah. There's some surprises that are fun, and there's some surprises that are challenges. I think that's one of the ones that's a challenge, is the sleeping piece of it. I've already talked about how I don't really sleep through the night still 9 months in. And it's just going from maybe around 4 months, we did a lot of sleep training, and we got my son to a point where he was mostly sleeping through the night. It wasn't perfect, but he was maybe waking up once. Yeah. Which felt fantastic. Sure. And then we got a little cocky. As parents, we're like, oh, we've got this solved. But then you get into a point where teething starts. Yeah. Oh, and they're waking up in the middle of the night because they're in pain. And it's not their fault. Like, what else can they do? Yeah. Or they get an ear infection. They get a sinus infection. They get a cold. And like, they're waking up because they can't help it. And like, exactly. Because of the technology, I can see my son trying to go back to sleep. I know he doesn't want to be awake. Right. But he just can't help it. He's in pain. And like, that sucks. Yeah. That happens to us too. And like, what do you do about that? But just kind of understanding that now here I am 9 months in, and I'm kind of having to redo sleep training because he's had a month where he's been sick. We're doing the same thing right now. It's funny that we're in the same phase, even though our kids are a few months apart. Right. So David went through the sleep training. He was great for a few months at sleeping through the night. And I would say the past 2 months, because it's been such a string of getting sick, teething, that he's still waking up multiple times a night. Yeah, the cycle never ends. Exactly. And what's weird is he's gotten better at going to bed.
So I've got bedtime down pat, like it's easy. I go in there, I'll cut the lights off, turn the nightlight on, turn on his little lullaby lamb that sits in the crib with him.
Ooh, nice.
And then I'll hold him, and he automatically shifts into his sleeping position. And then I'll just hold him for a minute till he calms down, lay him down, put this light blanket on top of him that he uses, a small blanket, and he goes right to sleep. And he's good until about 1:30 in the morning. Usually it's around that time, the witching hour, as I like to call it, where he'll get up crying. And it'll happen once or twice a night. This last night it only happened once, which felt really good.
Yeah.
And last night it was easy, where all I had to do was walk in and put his blanket back on top of him. He was on his tummy, and he kind of went back to sleep on his own. But many nights he'll wake up crying, he'll stand up, and he'll lean his head over the edge of the crib looking for us, and I'll have to go in there and rock him for a few minutes. And sometimes it takes like 10, 15 minutes to get him to calm down enough to go back to sleep. And like you said, it's a combination of sometimes it's sick, sometimes his nose is stuffy, sometimes it's just his teeth coming in, which there's nothing you can do about that until the teeth come in.
Right.
So you have to kind of relearn, and it's like that with a lot of things. Sometimes they'll learn something, they'll do it once, and then they won't come back to it for a while. Like David, he crawls like a champ now up on his knees, but for a while he was just doing the army crawl thing where he would drag his legs behind him like a zombie in The Walking Dead. And at one point in the living room, he got up on his knees and started crawling on his knees. And we were like, that is so awesome. We're so excited. Now it's time to crawl, man.
Yeah,
and then he went back to army crawling for like 3 months.
Okay. He realized that was too much work.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like it ebbs and flows with this parenting thing, man.
And I got a fun one, speaking of things that you think you know what you're doing, but you actually don't. Let's talk about putting on diapers. Sounds pretty straightforward. Like before you've done it, you don't know what you're doing, but obviously you don't have any other option other than learning quickly.
Sure.
So as soon as your kid's born, you're starting with diapers and you're doing several diapers a day, right?
Right.
So of course I learned, day 1, day 2, got diapers, no problem, right? I really think, I'm trying to be honest here and self-deprecating, I might have been about 6 months into this gig of parenting before I really knew how to put on a diaper. I don't know if this resonates with anybody else, but if you can think about, once you put the diaper on, around the legs, there's those little, what I call like flares that you kind of pull out, and it kind of creates the suction, if you will, around the legs. Didn't know that those were there for maybe several months. And so every time you put the diaper on, if you don't kind of run a finger around where the leg pops out of the diaper and kind of pull that out a little bit, it can just get out. Like the pee or the poop or whatever it is can just kind of flow out of there.
Are those supposed to go out or in?
No, they're supposed to kind of pull out because it kind of creates like a seal.
Right. See, I had them out for a while, and then he was having blowouts. So I saw those, and I thought, oh, those are supposed to go in. Those are absorbent. So maybe I've been doing it wrong.
Maybe. I think the idea is that, like, if you kind of pop it out, it creates like the seal around the leg.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you will. So go home and check that out. I mean, here you go. Pro tip for the day. I mean, I could be doing it wrong, but like as a parent and especially as a father, you never feel more embarrassed than when your wife, the mama, comes in there and is like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm putting on a diaper. I'm doing a good job. I'm being a dad. She's like, you are doing it wrong. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm mortified. Like, I can't believe that I've gone this long without knowing such a simple piece of information of how to put on a diaper correctly.
Well, see, but now you don't feel so bad because I didn't know.
No,
it.
I don't. This is why I'm glad we're
of you.
friends. This is fantastic and why we're co-hosts. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, just like the hurry and the rush of putting on a diaper. Like, it's such a simple thing, but like, there's some basics that I'm just realizing maybe I didn't actually know how to do the entire time.
Right. Well, and you're only half the job. Like the other half of the job is up to the kid. Sure. Like how much is he going to comply? David was great with diapers for a while, for like 6 to 8 months. And then he got this rebellious streak in him where all he wants to do is roll over. He wants to be on his stomach while you're changing his diaper. And that doesn't work. Because not only does he get on his stomach, but as soon as he's on his stomach, he's up on his knees. And then he wants to kind of pull himself up, and then he wants to rock back and just sit down. None of those things, first of all, are safe to do on a changing table. But beyond that, it makes it very difficult to get a diaper on him. So I end up with like a half-naked baby that's like writhing around. I'm having to wrestle him and pin him down to the changing table just long enough to put his diaper on, and then he's screaming his head off. And then, then my wife is like, What's going on? Why are you beating the child? And I'm like, no, I just want him to wear a diaper, and that is too much for him.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Yeah,
Don't you know how cute naked babies are? My gosh.
Yeah, until they poop and pee everywhere.
Until they pee everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, one of the last kind of things that I've been thinking about a lot over the last several months is just how all-consuming the parenting situation is.
Mm-hmm.
It takes over your complete life every day, every minute of every day. We've talked about a bunch of different examples, but if we just think about high level, the 50,000-foot view, just like this is life now. Every moment is planned around the child, whether it's because of what they're doing or how what you do is all about in relation to them.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been, I guess, a little surprising is that not everybody else gets that. Even people who have been parents, and I'm not trying to put people on blast, but like people who are, say, my parents, or you probably get this with your parents as well. Wonderful, love them, they're fantastic, they're great grandparents. Yeah. But how quickly you kind of forget everything that goes into it.
Yeah,
and not even just parents, but friends who don't have kids, other family members maybe who don't have kids, and they just. It's not their fault in any way. What I'm thinking about is that they are not in the mindset of parenting mode because they don't have kids.
Right.
Or they're not thinking about it, or, their kids are me, and when I'm growing up, they don't have to think about it anymore. But everything that they think about in terms of what they're doing, when they want to do it, what they want to accomplish for the day or the weekend, it's free and open to them in ways that it's never going to be for us ever again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
At least for the next, 18 years maybe?
Yeah.
So I keep thinking of a simple example. I love going to see movies.
Yeah.
All the time. I've maybe seen 5 movies since my son was born, which sounds like a lot to me. And only because I've fortunate to have some people who will babysit occasionally, so I can go see a movie.
And me as a parent, like I understand because I hear you say 5 movies, and I'm like, you've seen 5 movies?
I knew someone was going to be scandalized. Yeah.
But like our friends who are not parents, they're like, come on, we're going out every weekend. Let's go see a movie, babe.
The awkward thing is the text message, because this is where we are in today's society with technology is, it's text messages first, right? Of like, hey, do you want to do something? You get this message from a friend, from a family member, from whoever. And I'm like, yeah, sure. When do you want to go?
Yeah.
Like, what time are we going to go? And so immediately my mind has to now go through a checklist. I have to think about, okay, what day of the week you're going to do it? Weekday, might as well just call that a no-go. Weekend is the only option, okay? Sundays don't really count, so you're pretty much left with Saturday.
Yeah.
Maybe Friday night. But the problem with like a Friday night is then you got to think about bedtime.
Yeah.
Bedtime starts around 6:30 or 7, so we have to go somewhere either super early in the evening and be back for bedtime, or we have to wait until bedtime is over. Or, okay, third option is a babysitter, but then I need another human to come into the situation.
Right.
So what if the person who wants to hang out with me is my babysitter, like a family member?
Yeah.
They don't think about the fact of like, okay, now I have to conjure up another babysitter because you want to spend time with me and you can't be the babysitter.
Yeah.
So now we got to loop somebody else in, a third party, to think about it. So it just quickly spirals, and like, I think the pressure and the stress that's involved with just doing simple things is something I never quite anticipated. Wanting to have fun, wanting to do something simple like go see a movie is actually quite challenging and stressful, to be honest, for the parents, because we're just sitting there thinking like, how do you guys not get it? We have a kid.
Right.
Like, we have to plan around this. Like, you can't feel bad if I say, no, I can't hang out.
Yeah.
Or if I say, okay, the movie's got to be Saturday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Like, there's just so many stipulations that need to be followed. And if I don't follow that, my life gets much worse. Because if my kid doesn't get to bed on time, he's going to be screaming and crying, and it's going to mess up his nighttime sleep.
And that'll mess up your nighttime sleep.
And it'll mess up my nighttime sleep, right. If somebody else is putting him down instead of me, there's always the possibility that it doesn't go as smoothly.
Right.
Or they forget a step in the kind of routine. Or I just have to explain the routine to them. I mean, that's just another step to think about too. So that's a big one for me, and it's kind of how I think about this all kind of coming together in one big fell swoop.
Yeah, yeah, and you talk about even parents, like our parents who have had kids, don't quite get this anymore.
Yep.
And I think part of that has to do with maybe not our parents specifically, but the generation that came before us. It was a different parenting style.
Yeah, sure.
I like to watch comedians in cars getting coffee, and in one episode, Jerry Seinfeld and Alec Baldwin are talking, and they talk about how their parents, like, they were lucky if their parents knew their names. Like, they were that hands off. Like, it wasn't like it is today with us, where we are very involved with our kids beyond just keeping them alive. We want to making sure that they're engaged, that they're having a good time. We're helping them learn stuff. And I think that the generation before us also had more disposable income to hire babysitters and stuff. Yeah. I think that's why there were so many movies in the 80s and 90s about babysitters. And you don't really see that as much anymore, because like now we just have to find family or something like that, because babysitters are expensive. It was a little bit different back then, so I think there's a different frame of reference, and we're dealing with a new world here where both parents are working, and both parents have pressure from their jobs, and both parents want to have social lives, and like those are great things, but there's all this new, like you're talking about, pressure that comes with that, and it's hard to get people who aren't in the moment, who don't have kids right now, to get that. So I totally understand that. And I think another thing that happens is the way everyone sees you changes once you have a kid, and really the way you see yourself changes as well. Where your identity shifts from Brandon and Jesse. Before I had a kid, I kind of identified myself with my job. Sure. I am a video guy. I produce videos and stuff like that. And then, but once I had David, that has kind of shifted and gone by the wayside. And like, that's still my day job, and that's still how I make money. But now I more identify myself as a dad, and I kind of forget about all that stuff. And I think everyone else does too. I was just talking on the phone with my dad last night, and he joked. He's like, whenever we call from now on, we're really just going to be calling to check on David and see how he's doing. I was like, yeah, no, I know, Dad. And he was joking, but he wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, and that happened as soon as the kid was born. I think I talked about this in the very first episode. Like, all anyone wants to do that is closely involved with you, family and close friends, is ask about the baby, because kids are exciting. Like, it's fun to talk about kids, and it's fun to talk about your kids. Like, I love doing that. Like, I'm over the moon happy to talk about what David is learning and what he's struggling with and all that fun stuff. But I forget about what's going on in my own life. And I don't know if you kind of feel the same way, Brandon.
Definitely do. And I think that my identity now is Noah's dad. Yeah. Your identity is David's dad.
Right.
And that's probably first. And it's interesting because I'm kind of okay with it. If we're being honest, like, I'm okay with it, because that's what I want to be too. You know, I want to be dad now. I am dad. I want to be focused on my son. I want to do all the things for him rather than for myself first and foremost. So it's definitely true. But yeah, there's just because that's true, and just because I want that, doesn't mean you don't still want to feel like yourself or have other people take you, for who you are and thinking about you first and foremost. And it's not as if people forget every minute of every day, but I think I told a joke that goes perfectly along with this from my mom. Like, when my son was born, she immediately changed a text message chain with me and my wife from being me and my wife to Noah's parents. Yeah. She just refers to us as Noah's parents now on the text chain. So that's just, a clear and obvious example where, like, that's what we are now,
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's the same thing. When I come down to visit family on the weekends, because we don't live in the same city as our parents, it is always about bringing the kid to come see, the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, that kind of stuff. And we're still part of it. But, even this, like, Christmas is coming up. Yeah. And my wife and I have come into an agreement with my cousin and my brother and, like, the people in my family that are parenting age, that we're not going to get gifts for each other anymore. Yeah. It's all about the kids from now on. And, that makes sense for a number of reasons. Like, okay, good, now I don't have to spend money and then figure out, like, what my cousin wants on top of what her kid wants, and, and that kind of stuff. But it's definitely a dynamic shift. I mean, it goes along with getting older. Like, once you get past a certain point, you really stop getting birthday parties and birthday presents.
True.
So you kind of stop celebrating yourself, you know?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And Christmas is going to be now oriented toward our kids instead
Exactly.
of toward us. And so we're going to become, quote unquote Santa Claus, for our kids. And then no one's Santa Claus for us anymore. I mean, I'm not being sad about it.
No,
right now,
I
but
know.
It sounded a lot sadder than I meant it to be. but yeah, I mean, that's because we're both excited about doing that for our kids. And so we're not going to care necessarily that the attention's not on us anymore. So we're not ungrateful or not excited to do it. We're all of those things. But yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. It's just weird. It's just kind of different. It's a part of the shift that comes along with being a parent.
Totally. So yeah, to wrap things up, I mean, there's no pretty bow to put on this episode. It's just, if there's a lesson to this story, it's that you learn as you go along as a parent. There's no rule book, there's no manual. I think we talked about that, right from the first episode of this podcast, that you go in fresh and you kind of learn as you hit the ground running. And we've certainly learned a lot of lessons over the past 9 months and 13 months, respectively. And we've had to learn lessons multiple times, and so have our kids. And I think you learn to accept that as the normal, I think it's been said before that when you have children, it's really like you're starting your life all over again, which is cool because on the bright side, that means you get to relive a lot of those really fun moments that you remember from your childhood. Like I'm excited about, taking my kid to school and, school plays and sports and that kind of stuff.
What kinds of things they're interested in.
Exactly. Yeah. Getting to get back into the childhood, that I had. But it's, you take it, I don't know, one day at a time. I'm starting to wax philosophical here, so maybe that's a sign that
it's a fun ride.
It's time to end this episode. But you sit back and enjoy the ride.
It's a fun ride.
So, that's about it for this week's episode. So Brandon and I were talking, and I think that we may take a week or two off for the holidays. Christmas is coming up, and then New Year's after that. So if we don't do a new episode, we will see you guys in the new year. And between now and then, Brandon, how can our listeners get in touch with us?
You can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast, or you can drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com. Please also check us out anywhere you find your podcasts. We're in all the major ones. Do us a favor, leave us a rating and a review.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed to us. And, if you like what you're listening to, share us. It's easy to do, and it helps us reach a wider audience, and, we love to have a dialogue. And, while I'm talking about it, if any of today's episode kind of jogged a memory with you or rang true with you, send us a message, leave us a comment, talk to us about it, and we'll talk about it on the next episode. So until next time, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And, hey, Brandon, did you hear that the Scarecrow won an award?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was outstanding in his field.
He was.
These aren't going to get any better, guys.
They're getting a little better.
Thanks for listening.